Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mystic Syndicate. I am your host, Brian, and this evening we're doing something a tad bit different than what we normally do. We couldn't get enough people together for our one-shot, so I decided to fall back and do a little bit of content creation this evening. And one of my favorite things that I really like to talk about and also perform is world building. And not just world building, but actual like cosmos building. This is one of those things that is kind of near and dear to me. I'm a person who really enjoys doing homebrew campaigns, homebrew worlds. As a young person, of course, when I was back in my teens and things like that, when I was in high school, I heavily relied on published content from TSR primarily. And I still have some of those behind me on my bookshelf. And I refer to them every once in a while if I'm looking for ideas. I do have some Wizards of the Coast stuff there as well. Some Goodman Games things as well. But tonight we're going to be talking about world building. And being that this is an open chat, if you have any ideas about world building or some thoughts on it, please feel free to add to it. Just jump into the chat and just add whatever you'd like, and we'll talk about it here on the stream. So I hope everybody's having a good week. I know it's been kind of a stressful week. A lot of weird things and terrible things going on in the news. But so let's focus on something a little bit different. We'll see. Oh, okay. Recticlaubig Krift. We were 75% homebrew. We always use the published stuff as an outline. Exactly. And that is kind of the beautiful thing about Dungeons & Dragons, or really any role-playing games. You can just grab stuff and then change it to the way you want it. Remember, they always say it's the rules are guidelines. It's not supposed to be set in stone. It's really all about your imagination. And that's really what this is all about. It's sharing your ideas and your imagination. But no, that's right. Yeah, about 75%. I think that's probably where we were at too. I know that with this past campaign that I'm running, The Princess of Selene, the world itself was a Gygax creation, but a lot of the things inside of it are just stuff that I came up with. A lot of times it's stuff you just come up with on the top of your head like that. I know that sometimes that just happens. You have characters, players who come up with the craziest ideas. I know that like Ed, he's got some crazy ideas. You have a couple of other people in there who play, who change the world to fit what they want to do, and that's great. I think that's the beautiful thing about dungeon mastering those types of campaigns. So, yeah, no, 75%. That's pretty good. Homebrew. I know, but when I was a teenager, I stuck pretty heavily to the published stuff. If it was in there, I know one of my favorite wasn't even a campaign. It was a module. Was Beyond the Crystal Caverns. It was the first module that they put out in the UK. It was UK 1 was the number. I love that module. And I ran one party through it. I think it was my junior year of high school. And it's always stuck with me. I no longer have a copy of it, but I can get a copy of it. You can get I think it's like Drive Through D&D or something like that. You can go there and get recopies or just copies that they've republished. So, but no, I love that one, and I stuck to it to the letter. I could also probably say the same thing for Keep on the Borderlands when it first came out. I mean, just a wonderful Just really good adventures. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive right into some world building. So one of the things I really like, one of the first things I like to do, is come up with a creation story. If you're coming up with a planet that is brand new, it doesn't, it's strictly your creation. It has nothing to do with any other published works or the works of others. I'd love creation stories. Not too long ago, I took a college course in mythology and loved it. Great course. It was mythology and creative writing. It was a lot of fun. So, and one of the fun parts was the professor played D&D and she was a dungeon master, and so it was just a really good course, good class. But so. Yeah, let me get into this. So, creation story. Like all worlds, how was it created? Are there gods or outside forces that created your planet or planets? How did it happen? So let's kind of take a look at take a look at the Norse origin story to get some ideas. So with the Norse. It was really, really interesting because they had, and I know I'm going to butcher this word. It is Ginnungagap, which was, before creation, there was a vast empty abyss known as Ginnungagap. I'm sorry, I can't. It's just too hard. That there was fire and ice to the south, which was Muspelheim, a land of fire, and to the north was Niflheim, a realm of ice. And so what ended up happening was the collision of fire and ice created a great frost giant named Ymir. And I probably butchered that name too. And so the gods, Odin and his brothers, Vili and Vi, killed the frost giant Ymir. And from Ymir's corpse sprung the world. So his flesh became the soil, his blood formed the oceans, lakes, and rivers, his bones turned into mountains, and his skull was used to create the sky. And his brain was made into the clouds, that's kind of interesting and weird. But here's one thing I thought was really wild. It says that his eyebrows were used to create a fence around the human world, Midgard. Wow. I mean, they even broke it down all the way to his eyebrows. He must have had some pretty big, bushy eyebrows, I would think. I mean, he's a giant, for goodness sakes. So how did the humans come about? So in Norse mythology, you had Ask and Embla, and Odin found two fallen trees, an ash tree and an elm, and created the first man, Ask, from the ash, and the first woman, Embla, from the elm. Pretty cool. So he gave them life, and then his brothers gave them reasons and senses and other vital qualities. So when we're looking at creation stories or creation myths, you can use this kind of as a guideline. How did the world come? How did it become what it is? Who created it? What created it? I mean, you can see that it took the body of a mighty giant to create this world. So think about that when you're putting together your worlds. How did it happen? Go all the way back into history, as far back as you can, and see what that's all about. See how you can kind of shape that story, because you can use this information to flesh out your world later, of course. So let's keep going. So let's start with the core concept. We said we already have a creation story. So when we talk about core concepts, every world needs a central idea or theme. So you can you have to come up with like a setting or with a unique hook, like a world where magic is dying. That's one that I'm really excited about, where you have a world that has very limited magic, or magic is dying. And maybe that might be what your adventurers are trying to fix. Are they trying to fix this world? Are they running into a situation where the quest that they have is to restore magic to the world? A great story, a great storyline, good hook. And then, of course, you have to flesh those out, but we'll get to that later. Let's see. There may be floating islands dominating the sky. It really, you have to think about like how the geography works. But as far as that goes, that's your core concept is, like how does your world feel? Like I said, does it have magic? Does it not have magic? Does it have limited magic? Is it ran by wizards? Is it ran by just warlords, kings, emperors? Plenty of things that to think about when you're building. And of course, don't get too crazy, because you'll get like really bogged down into some stuff. Just write down certain things. Like I said in the description, I will make sure that all of my notes that I have here tonight that I've prepared will be in the description below. So do not worry. All right, let's take a look at the next part, which is create a living history. Talk about crafting a world's history to give it depth. What happened in the past? Were there wars? Was there stretches of peace? Was there a cataclysmic event that helped shape the worldview? So you can write these sort of things down. Like I said, wars are important. Was there a political marriage between two kingdoms? Was a king assassinated? Was he deposed? Was he slain by his brother? Did he abdicate, or did a queen abdicate? There's just a lot to really kind of think about, especially when it comes to history. And you want to make sure that this history plays into your characters' backgrounds, like where they came from. Did any of these things actually have anything to do with them? And you can also share that with your players too, so that they get ideas on how to build their backstories. Like they could build it around that sort of story, or that history. So it's another way to do it. Let's see. So make sure to also design cultures, not just places. I mean, of course, places are important. You need big cities and things like that, or maybe small villages and towns. But there should be culture. And that's where I'm going to kind of dive in really, really quick to the next campaign, which is going to be on the Mystic Syndicate. And there's not really quite a name for it yet. Well, actually, there is a name for it. I'm sorry. I forgot. I actually did come up with a name for it. And it's called the Killer Planet. And the Killer Planet is totally different than what you would know. It's still using Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule sets and the types of monsters. But what I did is you actually have 3 different cultures on this planet. And you have the natives, and the natives are what they call the forest children. And those include things like the halflings. There's halflings and gnomes and other forest cultures or civilizations, or peoples, probably a better way to put it. There's the elves and the orcs, and we'll get into that here in a minute. And then, of course, we have humans. What this world is all completely based on is that at one point in time, this planet only had one culture, and that culture was the halflings and the gnomes and those types of forest dwelling peoples. Not too long after that, there was the humans arrived, Now, the humans are actually from Earth, and when they arrive on this planet and try to set up a colony, but the forest folk had been keeping hidden and had seen what the humans were up to and trying to colonize their world, and they created a virus. And this virus wiped out probably about 90% of the population that came from Earth. And it mostly targeted the adults. So there was probably, the number that I'm looking at was right around 450 to 500 young humans left. Now, of course, these humans were not really well prepared for the wilds of this planet. And now I have to walk back because there's actually four different cultures here. On top of the halflings being there and also the gnomes, there were also dwarves hiding in the mountains. And the dwarves decided that they would come out and help the humans. And so they helped the humans. They came out, and it's called the Dwarven Mercy. It's a period of time where the dwarves took the humans in and helped them grow and fed them and helped them build their cities. And so there's now this very tight-knit community between the humans and the dwarves. But of course, on top of all of this, no one really knows where this virus came from. But the virus actually did come from gnome scientists and halfling and their halfling brothers. And it's been buried in history. So that's kind of a neat little sort of thing. That's a little Easter egg that I kind of threw out there. I'm sure somebody would be like, yeah, okay, cool. So, yeah. Now, of course, the elves show up. And the elves have orcs as slaves. Now, what happened with the elves is the elves also came from outer space. The elves came from a different star, and a different planet, and the star that was that their planet was orbiting was dying, and it was putting off large amounts of radiation, and it was killing the elves. So the elves left that star and found themselves to this new planet. But this would be close to 500 years after the humans had arrived. When the elves arrived, their ship was so badly damaged that it crashed. And it killed a lot of the elves and also a lot of the orcs. So, and for a long, long time, the elves, because the elves had magic, and the elves would not share their magic. And what ended up happening is it took a halfling to kind of break into one of their libraries and actually steal magic from them. And of course, once magic got out, it spread. But there's very limited magic in this world. So it's kind of cool. But so now you got kind of a glimpse into the new, and I'm not going to go into it any further because then I'm going to be giving away the plot and the story, and I don't want to do that. That would be, because I'm sure that Ed and some of the other guys are going to be checking this out later and be going, okay, now I know everything about this world. But there's so many more surprises. All right, so yeah, we were talking about living histories. We were talking about design cultures, not just places. So yeah, make sure you come up with some cities, but also make sure there's some cultures there. It may be race-based, like with the elves in the new campaign. It could just be humans. It could be a mixture of both. It could be a mixture of several different types of cultures, sort of like a New York City, where you have just so many different types of. Also, with these cultures, you can also add religions. Of course, like I said, you have a creator story, but there may be several creator stories depending on the culture. I mean, I just showed you the one concerning the Norse, but then, of course, if you look at Christianity, you would have, there's a void. The earth was, uh, without form, and all this gets in. It took 7 days, or six actual working days, and the seventh day God rested. You could have all of this. Um, every culture may have an origin story or a creation myth. So you do have to put a little bit of work into these worlds. It's not. I mean, you can make it as complicated as you want, or you can make it as hard as you want. That's really up to you. But yeah, definitely. Certain cultures may have certain traditions. They may have different calendars, and there's nothing wrong with that either. They may have different celebration times. If you have, I don't know how many moons your world will have, but maybe they have a goddess of one moon and a goddess of the other, or a god of one moon, or whatever. Whatever. And you can take these and form festivals around them, or there's just so many things you can do with it. So, okay, I'm going to keep going. Ecology and environment. So planets need places for people to live. What type of ecology does it have? Does it have a varied amount? Does it have deserts? Does it have tall mountains? Do dwarves live in these mountains, or do they live in the lowlands? Where do these people live? Do they have large oceans? Or do you have just a world that is just like an archipelago, or just many islands, just like the map you see here? And I'll show you how to create that here in just a couple of minutes. There's actually a website and a program you can download, but I digress. But yeah, you want to discuss and kind of think about how desert settings might shape trade routes. Are there magical flora that affect local economies? Do you have a special plant that gives like a certain sap or milk that runs the economy of this world? I mean, it might have magical properties. It might have healing properties. A lot like the life tree in Selene in the Princess of Selene campaign. The life tree, if you take the sap of the life tree, it's extremely poisonous. But if it is, if you take it and sort of refine it, not really refine it, maybe, I guess refining would probably be the best word. It turns into superior healing potions. It can either be a very, very deadly poison, or once it is modified, it can become something very, very valuable and important to life. It's really up to you. I mean, your plant life might have nothing to do with your economies. You might have a plant that people are looking for to use as a drug to get away from their everyday life. I mean, it's just there's just so many possibilities, but you can always keep this in your mind. Also, make sure seasonal changes. Is the weather magical? I mean, does it at certain times of the year? Does the weather affect how magic works? There's just so many things to think about. So let's also talk about factions and power struggles. Of course, with human beings or any intelligent races, you're going to have factions and power struggles. You're going to have kingdoms. You're going to have empires. You're going to also have things like knightly orders. You may have a religious theocracy. You may have a thieves guild or an assassins guild that can be hired by those who have the coin or who have power. So you also have to kind of think about those too. And those can also be used as great adventure hooks. Like if you're trying to stop an assassination, or maybe you are the assassins that actually got hired. You might be able to use some of these things as hooks. So dungeon masters, don't forget these things. They're if you're looking for something for your players to do, or carrying a little side quest or something, this might be something that you can use, or it might actually be part of your main storyline. Ooh. So let's talk about player integration. So what are player key details about their character, hometown, or past? Once again, this is going back into backgrounds, background stories, and really, I know like with the Princess of Selene, I did ask for background stories. I didn't use a lot of the backgrounds, and I kind of feel bad about that. And then, of course, Melinda, who plays Grenna, did not provide any background story whatsoever, so I had to make one up. So I made it up. And I think it worked out really, really well. I think she had a good time with it. But backgrounds, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. Like with some of the other players, I barely touched on them. I know with Calyx, I didn't really use his background story at all, but his story within the game itself has blossomed into something. It is really, it has become more than what a background should be, which is great. I really like that. It's kind of same with Temple. Yeah, same sort of deal. Alrighty, so let's talk about sensory details and immersion. So, DMs, try to use vivid descriptions, sights, sounds, smells, when you're talking about bringing locations to life. That helps. For example, describe the creak of a rickety bridge or the tang of salt in the air in a coastal town to ground players to the moment. Not a bad idea. I think it's a great idea. Also, make sure to leave room for mystery. Talk about the power of leaving some elements undefined. Suggest keeping certain areas or the histories vague to allow for improvisation and player-driven discoveries during the campaign. So you don't want to give it all away. Try to keep some of it back. Like I'd said before, like with my new campaign, I'm not saying anything more about it because there are certain mysteries that we want to keep hold of and surprise the characters with. That's pretty cool. So let's see. Use constraints creatively. So really what that's really about is maybe discussing with others about how limitations like a world with no metal or a single city state can spark creativity. Share how constraints can drive unique storytelling, like a society that uses bone weapons or a city ruled by a sentient artifact. Never thought about that. A city ruled by a sentient artifact. It sounds almost like that role-playing game Paranoia, where the computer is running society. You could use something like that. It's totally impossible. Totally possible. Let's see. Tools and inspirations. Recommend tools like World Anvil or Campaign Logger to organize world details. You can use those. If you don't want to, I think some of those you have to pay for. I don't know about that. I write everything down, and sometimes I just break out Excel or use Google Sheets to organize all of these thoughts and all of these ideas. Especially when it comes time when it comes to cities and cultures. You can put the city down there and put the culture, who's running it, and try to keep it all together for you. Because when you're building a world, it's not just like building a module. Modules are small, or an adventure. Those are what, like maybe 20 pages. A world can get pretty extreme. I mean, I've got books here behind me that have World of Greyhawk. I've got Forgotten Realms. There's like a whole freaking book, Forgotten Realms. It's like that freaking big. I also have Dragonlance, the World of Torel. I mean, these are serious because these are world books. It's not just one single adventure. One of the last things I wanted to talk about was map generators. Now, I am not an artist. I've never been an artist. I cannot draw pictures, but I love maps, and I'd love to draw maps. But now they have the ability for us to be able to use map generators, and you don't have to go through all of that crazy, like doing it all by hand. But you may want to do it by hand. I'm not saying don't. I'm just trying to make life a little bit easier for you. And I'm also going to put this down in the description. I'll put the link. This is a program called Asgard's Map Generator, and I will definitely put it up there for you. Right now, the one I have up here is just from the website, but you can actually install this program onto your computer, and you can use all of the toys with it. And there's a ton of different things that you can do with this thing. It's absolutely crazy. And you can see that you can open this up. You can create layers. There's styles. There's tons of options that you can use. You have tools where you can set cities. It comes up with populations for them. It'll also tell you the culture, depending on the culture that you want to use. These are all this is a really great tool if you're trying to put a world together quickly. So don't be afraid to use these types of tools. They can definitely help you out a little bit. But yeah, this is called Asgard's Map Generator. So make sure to check that out as well. So, yeah, so that's kind of just like a general introduction to world building. And I know I threw out a ton of different things that you might be like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can remember all this. Again, like I said, I'll put everything that I talked about in the description, and you guys can look at that and see what you think about it. Does anybody have any? I'd love to take questions from people, or if you've ever done any of this stuff, if you have an idea, or you want to share something that you've done in the past, like one of the world you created. Did you have an NPC, a favorite NPC? Memorable NPCs are great. There's just so many different things that you can do with world building, and once you get your characters, your players into this world, it'll be pretty interesting. One thing I wanted to talk about with the new world, with the Killer Planet campaign, is that it's not strictly just Renaissance, or actually it's medieval. It's not just medieval themed. It's more of a Renaissance, but it has some steampunk elements to it, especially when it comes down to the gnome tinkerers and the gnome scientists in the forests. And I just love this idea of these gnome and halfling tinkers working together to create a better world. So that's one thing that I'm really, really excited about with the new. And I already have there's already religions. And this was like one of the more strange ones that I really was kind of worried about. Was like, of course, the elves have their own religion. They have like a pantheon of gods that they worship, where the halflings and gnomes only have sort of a mother tree, which is this just gigantic treant that lives in one of the larger forests, and their whole civilization is just built around this mother tree, which does have godlike powers. And then, of course, with the humans, I really had it wasn't really a problem. It was like, how do I go about? What do I do? How do I do this? Because these are obviously technologically advanced humans. They had developed space travel. What do I do? Do I use D&D gods and goddesses from the book, or do I just throw those out and start fresh with something else? And that's the one thing that I've really been, playing around with. It's difficult. Sometimes you have to sit there because you don't want to put in things that may turn off your players. And there's certainly tons of things out there that can do that, unfortunately. But yeah, that's really about it. So, but no, thank you guys very much for hanging out with me this evening. I know that it would have been really nice if we could have done that one shot. It was an AD&D first edition, which I have not played first edition since probably it was high school. I mean, because I think second edition, and then once third edition hit the thing, and I still have all my third edition books here. But yeah, that's about it. No. So anybody have any questions about anything that I talked about? Any ideas? If you can think about it later, if you're watching the show later, just put it in the not show notes, put it in the comments below. And I will be happy to answer any question. So I think that's probably a good place to wrap it up. Well, thanks again, folks, and you all have a good night.